Budget 2009, brought to you by Deloitte.
Total government spending next year, Madam Speaker, will amount to 834 billion rand, including the second tranche of the 60 billion rand loan to Eskom and an unallocated contingency reserve of 6 billion rand. Real growth in spending on public services will average 5.1% over the next 3 years. Let me elaborate briefly on some of the key spending proposals that are provided for in the medium-term expenditure framework set out in this year's budget review and the estimates of national expenditure. Education. Government's contribution to public education remains our single largest investment. And I want to use that word again. It's not just an expenditure item, it is an investment. Because we know that it is key to reducing poverty and accelerating long-term economic growth. Education spending has grown by 14% a year for the past 3 years and accounts for 140.4 billion rand in the spending plans of national and provincial government in the fiscal year 2008-9. We received a tip from Mr. Tolani Noshe of Port Elizabeth thanking us for allocating money to libraries. He says, and I quote, "Libraries are central in community development. Libraries will assist your successor to collect more taxes because we would be an educated and skilled nation," unquote. I agree entirely with Mr. Noshe. Key priorities in education include extending the no-fee schools to 60% of schools from the 40% at present, expanding the school nutrition program, reducing average class sizes in schools serving lower income communities, increasing expenditure on school buildings, strengthening teacher training programs, and recapitalizing technical high schools over the next 3 years. Now, I want to address somebody in the gallery and say, now, please, 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 can we deliver on what we've called the non-negotiables for education? Teachers, in class, on time, teaching. No abuse of learners. No abuse of learners, no neglect of duty now. Now, all of those who've applauded, and I've observed you, please go home, ensure through the school governing bodies in the areas where you live or where you hail from that this is delivered. That's what's going to make this applause successful. That's what's going to give our children a chance in life. An additional 700 million rand is allocated for higher education subsidies and to accommodate the anticipated growth in student enrollment from 783,900 last year to 836,800 in 2011. The National Student Financial Aid Scheme receives an additional 330 million rand. Funding is also provided for a new education evaluation unit. Many South Africans will agree, Madam Speaker. I'm sure with Mr. Paul King, who sent this tip, and he writes, and I quote, "Regarding the salaries of teachers, I personally feel that we do not reward them enough for what they do and what we expect from them in terms of the daily care and education of our children," unquote. Now, Madam Speaker, a new salary dispensation for teachers was introduced last year, linked to school and teacher performance. Hence the urgency of establishing this new evaluation unit. It's not just about how much more people earn, it's how much more they provide for the successive generations in this country. In health services, a new unit to address the quality of service provision is also included in our health spending proposals. This will be named the National Office for Standards Compliance, and it will set and audit norms and standards for hospitals and primary care centers. We are profoundly conscious of the complexity of the challenges facing our health services and the strain on resources associated with the rising disease burden. Policy interventions supported in this budget focus both on health facilities and services and more aggressively combating the causes of ill health. An additional 1.8 billion rand is budgeted to introduce 3 new child vaccines which have proved effective in preventing infant and child deaths. The tuberculosis and HIV and AIDS program both receive additional resources. We are budgeting to extend the screening of pregnant mothers coming into our public health system and to phase in an improved drug regimen to prevent mother-to-child HIV transmission. Our antiretroviral program now covers 630,000 people. This is on the public system. And the medium-term expenditure framework provides for an increase to 1.4 million by 2011/12. The 2009 budget makes provision for further improvements in the remuneration of health professionals and for continued expansion of the hospital revitalization program. A total of 31 hospitals are under construction, 18 of which will be completed over the next 3 years. The development of a national health insurance system is aimed at improving the equity of health care financing and enhancing the quality of care for all South Africans. These are complex reforms, and the task team on social security has been mandated to conduct research and advise on the way forward. And let me just emphasize also that by improving on the quality of services in the public sector, we will in fact shorten the traverse to get to the national health insurance. It's not either or. We have to do both, and we have to accelerate what is happening in the public sector. Fighting crime. The fight against crime is drawing on the work of the Criminal Justice Sector Review. Efforts to overhaul the forensic and investigative capacity of the police are underway, together with enhanced use of available technology. A further 5.4 billion rand is allocated to interventions aimed at improving criminal justice services, the creation of an integrated fingerprint and DNA database, improving detective capacity, upgrading IT and telecommunication systems, and increasing the number of police officials from 183,000 last year to over 204,000 in 2011/12. But amongst members of this House, the distinguished Deputy Minister for Justice and Constitutional Development, Johnny de Lange, will tell us that the money is part of the issue. It's about overseeing the management of this stuff to ensure that these things actually happen, that we have measurable improvements in the outcomes. And one of the outcomes that we're looking for is lower incidence of crime and a quicker resolution of crimes through the judicial process. Funding is also provided for additional policing capacity during the 2010 FIFA World Cup, for the construction of new prisons, and for the implementation of the Child Justice Bill.